Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show, and who vota? Happy New Year from Helsinki in Finland. But the Finns aren't just happy at New Year, they seem to be happy all year round because they've just been voted the world's most contented country. Now, in last week's show, we asked the question whether it's the excellence of Finnish education that's the secret of Finnish happiness. In this week's show, we turn to the political system and ask whether the consensus politics of Finland have underpinned a social and economic model which exchanges high personal taxation for the excellence of social services. Now, Sanna Marin has just been elected the new Finnish Prime Minister. At 34 years old, the youngest Prime Minister in any democracy on earth. And furthermore, she leads a 5-party coalition, all of which are led by women. Now, does that remarkable fact indicate a departure in Finnish politics, or rather does it underline the continuity of the consensus politics of this Nordic country? Now, to examine the prospects for Finnish politics in the new year, who better to ask than Alexis Kouras, the editor-in-chief of the Helsinki Times. Now, Alexis Kouras, the coming to power of Sanna Marin must be a great boon for journalists in Helsinki. I mean, the whole world is interested in this young woman, the youngest Prime Minister on the planet. So has there been a lot of international journalists beating a path to the Helsinki Times to say, how's she going to get on?
Yes, absolutely. It has been a tremendous interest from the international media, and even, Hillary Clinton tweeted about the new government of Finland and wrote in Finnish that Hyvä Suomi, good Finland. And I have also received several emails and from international media who want to know more.
So, and of course, good copy for the Helsinki Times, I would imagine. It's,
yes.
Plenty of both the formation of the government, a government which not only has 5 parties, mainly led by young women, but 2/3 of the new cabinet are women as well.
Yes, that's right. It's even for Finland, this is a new record of female leaders, and especially their age is very young.
Now, tell us a bit about the Finnish politics. I mean, for our international audience, a 5-party coalition. The Social Democrats were the lead party, the Prime Minister's party. They had less than 20% of the vote in the elections just passed. I mean, that is a quite remarkable arrangement. How do you manage to keep coherent leading 5 parties in a coalition? It must be like herding cats.
Well, this is not uncommon with the Finnish politics. It has happened several times that there are many different parties, and especially these small parties who get just a fraction of the votes. They sometimes even become kingmakers when the big parties, they don't want to work with each other, so they just go and collect the small parties together and form a government like right now. But the Finnish politics is somehow you could even say boring. A lot doesn't happen in the politics.
I love this phrase, a lot doesn't happen in Finland. But a lot has happened now because I think it must be one of the most reported events internationally to have this new look cabinet led by young women. I mean, this is a huge story internationally.
Yes, it is. And there is I think Finland has never got more attention to its new government than now. And mainly because these are women, and these are young women, most of them. Then again, Finland is a consensus society. There was a research that researchers examined the variety of opinion within the Finnish parties. And they came out with the result that if you look at the diversity of opinion in all the Finnish parties from the right to the left, they will all fit into one Swedish party's diversity of opinion. And this is why there has been, for a country like Finland, which is only 5 million people, and basically, in my opinion, a unity government where all the parties could always be part of the government would be much better solution than this majority forming the government, because they really don't differ in opinion as much as they could handle.
But even if they don't differ in policy opinions, they certainly have fights, because the last Prime Minister fell because of a very fractious industrial dispute, which turned into an argument between the Social Democrats and the Centre Party.
Well, that's a part of in Finnish politics. You are not allowed to lie knowingly. So if a Finnish politician tells a lie and he or she is caught, then that's the end of the game for him.
And is this specifically telling a lie to Parliament, or is it just more generally?
This is what is different with the Finnish politics, because integrity of the politicians is really important. And the previous Prime Minister, he did lie to the Parliament. And
and this was about the post office.
Yeah, it was
workers.
about the post office strike and how it was handled. So that was the issue, not the strike itself or how it was handled. But
and how do you anticipate that Sanna Marin and the new coalition government will tackle, for example, the post? Is this something that she'll be able to settle reasonably quickly, or will it be a thorn in her side as well?
Well, that is already gone and put behind. And you should also understand that the reason that this became a bigger than normal crisis for the government was that the Centre Party, which was one of the biggest parties in the coalition, they had just had a change of leader. So Katri Kulmuni, who became the leader of the Centre Party, she also wanted to show some power and reshuffle the government and get a better position for herself. And that's why this was basically, she was the one who said that we don't trust Rinne anymore.
So I'm interested from your opinion, do you think that having the cabinet dominated by women will lead to more consensus, or will it just be as fractious of power struggles between the parties as the previous administration?
Interestingly, in Finland, this gender issue has never been that important. And even today, it's not really that important. But I think one of the biggest problems of this government and the Prime Minister is lack of experience. It has been portrayed as a very positive issue that these are young and these are women. And the world is congratulating Finland for that. And of course, it's a positive issue if they did have the competence. But unfortunately, or naturally, being young is also means you have less experience. And this is going to be a problem. So I would be very surprised if this government would still be in place in 1 year.
Now, when you say the Prime Minister's inexperienced, there's no tinge of sexism in that answer. I mean, is this something you would say for an inexperienced male politician? If you had a new male Prime Minister at 34, would you be as doubtful about the level of experience that person had?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We had the second youngest, before Marin, the second youngest Prime Minister we had, Esko Aho, in the beginning of the 90s. He was 36 when he became Prime Minister. He also was quite unexperienced, and he came during a very difficult time. There was an international financial crisis. But he made all the wrong choices, despite the advice of economists. He devaluated the Finnish currency against other currencies. It was before the EU and before the euro. And at the time when a lot of businesses, they had hard currency loans, and people in Finland, their home loans were in dollars or German marka. And he devaluated the Finnish currency, and tens of thousands of businesses went bankrupt. A lot of people lost everything. Many people committed suicide. And even today, this is very interesting, because one of the issues that today in Finland is being discussed is the lack of babies. People are not making babies. The reproduction is 1.4 babies per one adult. And the researchers, when they researched the reasons why young people are not making babies, they realized that many of these people grew up during Esko Aho's time, and they still remember the hardship and the sudden change of fortune. which has traumatized them for life.
I've heard politicians blamed for many things, but it's unusual to be blamed for lack of fertility and number of births in the economy. But surely Sandy Marin, knowing the precedent of her inexperienced male predecessor of 20 years ago, will be very careful not to repeat that mistake.
I certainly hope so, and I want to reiterate and strongly say that in Finland, it really doesn't matter. Women have had many important roles, and for me personally, it doesn't matter if a decision maker is female or male. But I think there should be a competence for the job and for the responsibility that.
But of course, as a newspaper editor, you must congratulate the new Prime Minister on generating all this wonderful international copy and inquiries and interest.
Absolutely,
in
yes.
Finnish
It
politics.
has been a positive news for Finland. I certainly hope it will continue, and she will do well, and she will become an example for all others. But time will show. Of course, one important issue about Finland and Finland's politics is that Finland is a country that could function without a government for a very, very long time.
Because the civil service would run things?
Yes, the civil servants, there is a highly experienced, highly reliable, uncorrupted civil servant layer who actually, they are the ones who are running everything. And one of the things they do is when a new minister comes, they brief the minister, they tell her what you can do, what you can't do. And of course, the ministers want to, run their political agenda and program, but it's very much the civil servants who run everything. This is an international problem, not the Finnish problem only, because with elected officials, for any other job, you need to have a competence. For example, Sanna Marin would not get a job in any of the ministries based on her CV to lead a small section of that ministry. But because she is an elected official, she has been giving first she was the transport minister and now she is the prime minister. It doesn't make sense. I mean, there should be, even inside democracy, there should be some sort of a competence level requirement when it comes to high responsibility jobs, because sometimes the consequences could be really far-reaching.
Coming up after the break, we continue our discussion on Finnish politics. Will the new year bring new challenges?
So what we've got to do is identify the threats that we have.
It's crazy.
Confrontation, let it be an arms race.
Who is on offense? Very dramatic development.
I personally am going to resist.
I don't see how that strategy will be successful.
Very critical time.
Time to sit down and talk.
In a world of fake partisan news, lies, and conspiracy,
it's time to wake up, to dig deeper, to hit the stories that mainstream media refuses to tell. More than ever, we need to be smarter. We need to stop slamming the door on the facts and shouting past each other. It's time for critical thinking. It's time to fight for the middle, for the truth. The time is now for watching closer, for watching the Hawks.
Welcome back to the Hotel Camp, one of the grand hotels of Europe, first built during the Belle Epoque. And Helsinki as a city, to a great extent, grew up around this hotel, just as Finnish society has been built around a consensus in its political system. We continue our discussion on what the new year offers for Finnish politics. Things have been rubbing along quite well in Finland. They've been recently voted as the happiest country on earth by a United Nations agency. So if the civil service, according to yourself, is running the happiest country on earth, they must be doing a pretty good job.
Of course, there is a lot of debate about those results. When they talk to people, are you really the happiest people? And people said, I don't know. I don't think of myself as a happy person. If you put a camera in the center of Helsinki, which would detect people's emotion, happiness would not be the main or number one.
But isn't that because they all have their mufflers on? Because, even for a Scot, it's quite parky outside in Finland.
Yes, but the Finnish people are very content, and they are extremely obedient to authority.
And interestingly enough, the other happy countries on the planet tend to be the Nordic neighbours of Finland. But that in itself is interesting, because obviously Finland is not as rich as Norway. It's colder than Denmark, but you've pipped your neighbours at the post to become the happiest country. This is an accolade you must use, surely.
Well, the Nordic welfare system has been functioning well, and it has been functioning well for a long time. And it has been because they have taken this model from each other, and it has been a semi-socialist system. Government owns a lot of companies and resources. It's taxing people high, but then giving them many services for free, and so on. And equality has been more or less in place. So that also comes to the education part of, because Finland has been many times announced as one of the best education systems in the world. But if you look at it, it comes down very much to the equality of people, because all these kids, when they go to school, none of them is hungry, none of them are having lack of material problems. Their healthcare is free. They have been checked since they were born for free, and so on and so on. So basically, the last layer, which is the learning and education, that really doesn't differ that much from other well-being countries.
I saw a comparison recently between Finland on the one hand and America on the other by a couple of journalists and writers, one of whom was American and one of whom was Finnish and married. And they wrote an article pointing out that although they paid much higher tax in Finland, they went through the whole range of things that they didn't have to worry about when they were in Finland, but caused great anxiety when they were in New York. For example, childcare, for example, the education system, for example, college fees. And once you went through all these things that are provided as part of the Finnish welfare system, then, of course, there was a different balance between tax. But the point that they made was particularly interesting. It was the lack of anxiety and fretting about these the bills that were looming for families in New York. But when they were in Finland, staying in Finland, they didn't have to worry about it.
That's right. That's right. In Finland, the population pays taxes to the government, and government takes care of all of this. And usually everything is high quality. Childcare, schools, public schools are very high quality. Healthcare, public healthcare is very high quality. In general, I think one of the problems when Finland is compared to other countries is that a small, well-being country like Finland with 5 million people, which would fit in many cities in the world, is compared to whole countries. Like if you compare it like to Indonesia or China or even the US, when in reality, if you want to get a more accurate comparison results, you should compare Finland to a well-being city or the well-being part of a city. Then you would get a better result, because here the equality is in this small population, it's good, but it has its limits. If you would add 100 or 150,000 people who would need social care, the system will break. It won't work anymore.
That brings us on to some of the challenges that Finnish politics will face, that the new government will face. How would you analyse, and what do your readers tell you about the issues? I mean, is immigration, for example, is that an issue which is growing in importance in Finland? The question of the new language obligations in terms of Swedish, is that something that's being resisted by some sections? Is there a rise of the populist right to challenge this political orthodoxy in Finland?
Yes, these are, Finland doesn't have many huge national level problems. Immigration has always been a topic in politics. The Swedish language, which you mentioned, which has always been a second official language of Finland, but now one of the coalition parties, the Swedish People's Party, who actually runs on the agenda of Swedish language, they want to make it compulsory part of final exams of high schools, which of course people don't like that. But I think that there is not a big reaction because people know that the next government, which most probably will be the right-wing parties.
So that'll be a right-wing coalition to replace the left-centre coalition that you have at the present moment.
Yes, I think that most probably, if nothing happens, the next prime minister will be the leader of the Finns party, which is growing in popularity. The parties in Finland, really, the diversity of their opinions is not really far from each other. They are not really that much against each other. There are a few issues that they disagree, but on most of other issues, how to run the welfare state and on major issues, they agree. Immigration is one of the issues that, if you go to the Finns party, which is on the right, they disagree. They want much less immigration, harder rules, but the left says, no, we can have more people come in.
Alexis, I want to ask you a question which you can judge as a journalist. So I need a journalistic, factual answer. And that is for your readership in the Helsinki Times, if they were asked what their level of interest was in having the youngest Prime Minister on the planet on the one hand, and Finland qualifying for the first time in ages for the European Championships on the other, then what would they pick? Would they pick the football or the politics?
I would have, if I would answer instinctively, I would say football. But when I looked at the statistics before I come to this show, actually we got the most hits for Sanna Marin's government.
Well, there's very few societies on earth which can proclaim that their political system is proving more interesting than their football league.
Yeah, at this moment at least. And, in 2 months it could be different.
Alexis Kouros, thank you so much. Now, in order to celebrate the degree of interest internationally in your new Prime Minister, so as it can be toasted for all the copy it provides journalists, I brought along a quaich. It's a Scottish tradition. It's whisky, only Scottish, Scotch whisky only, none of these Finnish spirits or whatever. Scotch whisky in the quaich and passed round all your journalists.
Thank you very much.
Alexis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm now delighted to be joined by one of Finland's leading educationalists, Professor Ulla Ingström. Professor Ingström, I'm interested in the new Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, 34 years old, the youngest Prime Minister in the world, with a huge amount of international attention, leading a coalition of 5 parties dominated by young women. And yet, coming in when the previous coalition, the Prime Minister fell because of arguments, fractious nature, how do you think it's going to address a key issue like Finnish education?
My feeling is that these young women in the government are the best thing that has happened in Finnish politics in a long, long time. And I expect that they will show a capability of going beyond these fractions and to see the common good, education as something that everybody has access to and which supports everybody's flourishing. And I don't think that there is a better chance to build this kind of dialogue and even unanimous future-oriented effort than this government and this situation with education. This government faces tasks. It has to actually expand education. It has to mind the fact that it's been underfunded over the past 10 years by previous governments. These are challenges, but I think that this government should be able to do it.
And the Prime Minister's own background, Sanna Marin, the first member of her family to go through university education, comes from a rainbow family background. Are these going to be strengths as well as she tackles the challenges on what must be the key subject of education?
Yes, absolutely. These young women, not only Sanna Marin, but also at least two other party leaders who are in the same age range and female, in the Green Party and the left-wing party leaders, they all share this experience that this kind of public education system is not only the strength of our country, but our personal strength. So I think it's a very important unifying factor, actually.
But despite the optimism which understandably greets this new coalition firmament, they will feel under pressure from the populist right, which has emerged in Finland as it's emerged in many countries. For example, regaling against the teaching of Swedish in Finnish schools. Would you assess that as a danger to break the consensus on education?
Yeah, there is that risk. I think partly because they can kind of rely on spontaneous support from many young students themselves who are so immersed in the world of social media that they think that they only need English. Swedish is obsolete. And, you know, it takes a special effort to make the case and to show that mastering multiple languages is still a great asset. I do believe that because, you know, this basic provision of Swedish language in the Finnish society, it's a constitutional issue, that it cannot be very easily attacked. But there is a will to do that in those political quarters that you mentioned, and that's one of the challenges that this government will have to face, because at the moment these cold winds around the world for nationalism and, I would say, quite ultra right-wing populism, we are not immune to those.
Professor Engström, can I present you with the Quaich? This is Scots Gaelic, Loving Cup whisky, only Scotch whisky in the Quaich, particularly at this time of year, but all year round, and then toast continuing success for Finnish education.
Oh, thank you so much. This is for the new year.
Ironically, for a young woman from the social media age, Sanna Marin has come to power under very traditional circumstances. That is a fractious industrial dispute and bickering between the coalition partners in the Finnish government. However, the world as a whole looks on in wonder at a country now led by a generation of young women and a cabinet dominated by women. There is general approval. It looks like a departure from business as usual. But in a very real sense, surely this new lineup, this new political leadership, offers the opportunity for continuity in Finland to re-establish the social and economic model that served this country well in the past and may well do so in times to come. So for myself and Taz and all at the show, it's goodbye for now and have a good new year.